Now let's talk about table spaces. After we talk about table spaces in DB2 Essential Training 1 course, when we were describing the DB2 environment, we said a table space was a logical layer between your logical table and your physical disk and memory. So in this figure, we created table space my tables and associating it with these two and buffer pool 1. Then we created or altered table B and indicated that this table be associated to table space my tables 1. This is how you can tell DB2 which physical sources you want to use for your physical table. In the DB2 Essential Training 1 course, we also talk about the different table spaces created by default when you create a database. Syscat space, temp space 1, and user space 1. In this table, we provide more detail about creating your own table spaces. So, as said before, a table space is basically going to abstract and details of physical storage. And that's where you store your tables. It is composed of one or more container, where a container can be files, directories, or raw devices. And as shown before, you have to specify a page size. And those are the page sizes I mentioned earlier for K, 8K, 16K, and 32K. When you create a table space, there has to be a buffer pool that already exists with the same page size. And the other parameter that you need to specify when you create a table space is the buffer pool name that you will be associating this table space with. You have to specify the extent size. If you don't specify, there is a default for that. For example, I did not specify a extent size, so the same thing with the prefetch size. If you don't, and the number of pages to prefetch means that you will be retrieving from this and moving pages from this into the buffer pool, and you will be prefetching more pages to DB2. Uses a prefetch size because in anticipation that you may use more pages that you requested. For prefetch size, this is where you specify the number of pages to prefetch. Prefetch means DB2 will be prefetching or moving mode pages from disk to the buffer pool that you had requested. So DB2 would move more pages than you had requested from this to the buffer pool, and it is done for performance reasons. DB2 anticipates that you will be using more of these pages. So that's why it's going to bring from the buffer pool, and so the prefetch size is going to determine how many more pages you will be bringing to the buffer pool, depending on your application. If you specify a prefetch size that is too big, then it may not be good for performance because you are bringing too many pages, and they might be removing useful pages in the buffer pool to bring these new pages. So sometimes you should, it depends on your application what size the prefetch is you should specify. Now let's talk about tablespace types. There are 3 types of table spaces. Regular for user tables, a typical example is user space 1, which is what was created by default when you create a new database. Large is also used for user tables, but you can also store large objects in XML. And temporary is as the name says, it is going to be used for temporary tables. So within temporary table spaces, we have two types: system temporary. For example, we have temp-space1 tablespace, which is also created by default when you create a new database, and there must always be at least one. System temporary tablespace, this type is used by the system, meaning DB2. When there is not enough space in memory, DB2 will create tablespace, this system temporary space, to finish calculations. Once is finished with this calculation, it will delete the tables. For example, DB2 may do this for search joins or for other DB2 internal operations. Then we have user temporary table spaces. And these are used for temporary tables created with the declare global temporary table statement or the create temporary table statement. We will talk more about temporary tables in the lesson working with database objects. User temporary and system temporary table spaces are often confused by common DB2 users. Just remember that system temporary table spaces are from the system, that means DB2 manages them, while user temporary is managed by the user, meaning a regular user of DB2 who explicitly creates these temporary table spaces to work with temporary tables for his or her own application.